Hi BookTube, it's Missy, and today I'm here to share with you guys my March Madness wrap-up. Yeah, I failed. I failed miserably. If you follow Penelope over at Penelope's Picks, my BFF here on BookTube, I will leave her channel link down below. She posted her video, I think yesterday or the day before, where she also failed. Now, we had this theme together, March Madness, that we were going to read a ton of Alice in Wonderland books. That didn't happen to either of us. We got distracted and she had family over and I was dog sitting and it just didn't happen. And I wanted to participate in the Buzzwordathon that was being hosted by Lala over at Books and Lala. We'll leave her channel link down below as well. She's amazing. I aspire to be her. Not her physically, like her, well, she's amazing as a person as well, but she's just so creative. Like, I aspire to have her mind. She's super creative and she's amazing at video editing, and I wish I had more time to do the things that she does, because we're both moms and she also works, and yet she has all this time to be so organized, and I'm fangirling right now. Like, she's just so amazing. Anyways, I really wanted to participate in her readathon because it sounded like fun. Her readathon for the Buzzwordathon round 3 was to read the buzzword who, what, when, where, why, and how, and it had to be in the title. So that distracted me the rest of the month. I didn't get any Alice in Wonderland books read at all. I started and I never finished. So let's just get into it, because this is going to be a pretty short video, I think, since I don't have much to talk about. We'll see. I end up always, I don't know why I'm so high. I end up always having lots to talk about because I'm a chatterbox. So yeah, let's just start with the, well, I'll talk about the three readathons first, or maybe I'll talk about the books first. I don't know, what should I do? Get on with it. I hear you. You're telling me to get on with it. Okay, so the first book that I finished in March was In an Absent Dream by Shannon McGuire. This is the newest book in the Wayward Children series. This came out in January. I pre-ordered this book and I loved it. I did give this 4 stars. This is about Lundy. Now, I don't remember Lundy from the first book, but people have told me in the comments that Lundy, yes, was in the first book. And so now I feel like I have to go back and read the first book, because the second, third, and fourth books are so fresh in my mind, but the first book I read a really long time ago. And so I don't remember all of the characters that were in the first one. Maybe I don't need to actually read the entire thing, or just skim. Skimming it will probably be good as well. Anyways, this is about Lundy's story. So Lundy is a little girl when we meet her. She's 10, I think, and she's a bookworm. She doesn't have any friends. Her father is the principal of her school, and because of that, nobody likes her, because they feel like, oh, well, we can't be friends with Lundy because her dad, she'll tell on us. She'll be a tattletale and her dad will know everything. And so she just didn't have any friends. And one day when she's walking home from school, she comes across this like enchanted, mysterious tree. And the tree has a door in it. And the door says, you have to be sure. And she's like, I don't understand what that means. But she opens the door and she walks in, and that takes her into another world, which is the Goblin Market. And the whole point of this story is fair value, fair trade. In the Goblin Market, everything is a bartering system. So what you think would be fair value for something may not be the same value to somebody else. So you have to compromise and make sure that it's fair value. That's the main word. Be sure. And there is a a rule in the Goblin Market. All children under the age of 18, I think it's not 17, I think it's 18. All children under the age of 18 have a choice that they can either stay in the Goblin Market or they can go back to Earth. And with all of our other characters from the other books in the series, they don't have that choice. They're not able to go back and forth, you know, whenever they wish. If they're in, and if they're out, they are out. But Lundy, her case is different. The Goblin Market is very open to anybody, really, as long as they are willing to give things fair value. And I thought it was a pretty good story. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed the story itself. I loved the Goblin Market. I loved the fair value. I loved the fact that Lundy grew in her decisions over time. When she was 10, she didn't know what she wanted. Not really, but with periodic and continual trips to the Goblin Market, she learns how to be a better human. And that may have been her downfall because she was more human than she was goblin. And they're not actually goblins. I don't know why it's called the Goblin Market. But even though she loved both worlds, she has to choose one. She can't have both. And I really liked it. Again, I enjoy this series so much. They're all very short books. They're all like novella size, about 100 and so pages. And they're just such fun, fast reads. I did read this entire book out loud to the dogs. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I dog sat for an entire week, the second week of March. And so I figured I would be able to read a lot more books during that week, and that didn't happen. But I did finish this one, so I was very excited about that. All right, the next book that I completed in March was our Stephen King 2019 read-along pick, and that was Revival. Now, I am the host of the Stephen King read-along. I've been doing this for the last 3 years now. I do have a Goodreads group if you are interested in joining us. I will leave the link down below. You don't have to go audio. I do all of my books on audio because it's easier for me to listen to a story to and from work. But if you like reading the physical copies, you know, you could also do that. But what we do on Goodreads is we just discuss the books. And, you know, it's like a buddy read with everybody. That's basically what it is. I have had some struggles in the past finishing the book that we were supposed to read in the month that we were supposed to read it, but I was able to read this entire thing, which was very exciting. I received the physical copy from my best friend for my birthday a few years back when it first came out, and in a lot of the other covers, you'll see a church. This one just has the lightning bolt, which makes more sense because even though our main character meets a preacher or a minister, whatever you want to call it, he meets him when he's small, and so there is a church involved, and you do see revival here, which could be church revival, but oh, I'm like up here in Stephen King. But revival also means coming back to life. So there's a little bit of foreshadowing is in the title itself. And of course, the lightning is extremely important because the entire book is about the power of electricity, especially lightning itself. I gave this book 3 stars, and that is, for me personally, very low for a Stephen King book. I normally give 4 to 5 stars on every Stephen King book. So to read a 3-star was a little bit depressing. I found the story okay. If you are a Hallmark watcher and you love Hallmark movies, you're going to like this book. I know I had a commenter say that this book they weren't able to finish it because they were very offended. And I read the entire book and I wasn't offended at all. I thought that the book was slow and slightly boring. But I have a different view on things than other people. So what offends me may not offend you and vice versa. So basically, I don't want to give away the story. So how do I put it? So our main character, we follow him throughout his life. Again, we start off when he is about 6, I think. I think he's 6 when we first meet him. And he goes to this church in his town, but they haven't had a preacher. What is it called? It's not Reverend. There's so many different names. I don't know what they're all called. Anyways, the Reverend. Their church has been without a Reverend for a few years. And so one Reverend comes and moves into the town and takes over the church. And for 3 years, it's great. Everybody loves him. He believes in God. His faith is on par with everybody else. And then his wife and child die in a car accident. And that changes his beliefs, and he is distraught, and he's looking for comfort in other ways. And he goes with the tinkering of electricity and lightning. Now, that's a big part of the entire book. Our main character, what is his name? Jamie. Thank you. Our main character, Jamie, sees this sermon, this bad sermon from the Reverend about how people shouldn't believe in God and everything. And it changes his belief immediately as a 6-year-old because he's so impressionable. And basically the town kicks the Reverend out for being it's heresy. I don't know what it's called. Basically, the townspeople kick out the Reverend for blasphemy. You don't denounce the Lord to an entire church. He was very offensive, and everybody was just shocked. And this isn't the first time that this has happened. In this book, it was. But just in my life in general, I've seen accidents where it has changed family members' faith. And I've seen death, and that's changed their faith. So this is very accurate to people who have a huge loss in their life. Some people turn to God when things go awry, and some people leave and they don't come back. And so we follow Jamie. He is into music. He becomes a musician. So we're following him through high school and through college and into his adulthood. And there's a little bit of heroin addict because he becomes a heroin addict. So he's getting off of drugs. And there's a lot of things. It's basically, like most King stories, it's a human character-driven story with a weird twist. So the entire book was pretty bland and mediocre, and I've seen it on Hallmark, and I've watched these kinds of movies where there's healing or what have you. And then the end happened, and I feel like the end kind of reminded me of the end from The Dome. Now, in The Dome and Revival have 2 different endings. They're not even the same at all, but they're similar in a way. I was like, what? That's the ending? And that's how this book ended. I was just like, oh. Like I was expecting something different. But, when you go into a King book, you have to be aware that things can get weird. Sometimes you like the weird and it's amazing. And sometimes you're just like, okay, that was too weird. That was just too weird. But if you know King and you know how he writes and why he is an author, then you'll understand why he wrote the ending that way. But was very strange. So yeah, 3 stars. I do recommend if you want if you're new to King, because this is a perfect example of how his books are character driven. It's not that long, and then there's that weird twist at the end. And all of his books have something strange that happens throughout the book. But, you know, this was up there. Just very weird. I liked it, though. Again, 3 stars. I like every single Stephen King book. This one was just a little bit lower than my favorites. So there's that one. So with these 2 books, they didn't really go along with any readathons. I mean, this is a readathon, and I pick a new Stephen King book every single month. But this also could have been used for the a year-a-thon readathon, because in March it was standalone books. And then this one I just wanted to read it because I read book 3 in February, so I wanted to read the next one in March. And then I picked up a ton of books for the Buzz Wordathon, which was the 3rd week of March, and it's hosted. And I know the month of March I was supposed to do Mad March and read a lot of Alice in Wonderland books, like retellings and so forth. That's the whole point of the wig and everything. And then I got sidetracked because of the Buzz Wordathon, and then I got really interested into all the nonfictions that I was reading that I just didn't pick up any. I just didn't pick up any books. Okay, so let's get back to the Buzz Wordathon books, because I did choose a book for every single word. I was being very, what's the word? Lame. That's not the word. But I was being an overachiever. That's the word I'm looking for. I was overachieving. I thought, oh yeah, I can read every single book for the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Is that who, what, when, where, why, how? That's 6 books. I can do 6 books in a week, says me. Like 4 years ago when I first started BookTube, I could do it, but not now. Not now. So for the first book that I completed during the Buzz Wordathon was These Children Who Come at You with Knives by Jim Nipful. This is And Other Fairy Tale Stories. This has been on my bookshelf for the last 4 years. I bought this at Book Outlet. I was in love with the cover. I thought that the title was amazing, and that there's a chicken, and I really love Little Shop of Horrors, and there's this like plant here that's eating, and then there's this talking fish and knives, and and these bugs. Like, if you look at the cover of this book, it tells you pretty much in picture form every single story that's going to be taking place in the book. And I thought this book was glorious. I gave this book 4 stars. It was so fun to read. I finished this during my camping trip, and you might say, well, you camped in April, why are you reviewing this in this video? And I say to that, no, I'm right, you're wrong. Shut up. I got that from the Try Guys. I'm stealing it, I'm coining it, no, just kidding. Anywho, I read it while I was camping, but I started it before I went camping. And because I finished it in the first couple days of April, I figured I'd just add it to this video because I didn't have very many books to share with you guys in this wrap-up anyway. So, again, this is a collection of short stories. I thought it was hilarious. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 13 short stories in this collection. By the way, I've noticed in a lot of my collections that there are 13 stories. Is that a rule of thumb? You have to have 13 stories in a collection? I don't know. But it's something I observed. So it does say fairy tales. So every single one of these stories is going to be absurd in some way, fairy tale-like. The first story is the chicken who was smarter than everyone. So there's a talking chicken. The next one is the boy who came to his senses. He wanted to marry a princess. The third is my favorite story in the entire book, and that is the gnome who would be king. Oh my gosh. I'm just going to say that it's hilarious. And then there's Plants Ain't No Good. That's a talking plant. Misery and Company is about misery following you around like a gray cloud, and it's a monkey. So there's a monkey in the cloud that follows this guy around and brings misery to him, which is so sad. And then, you know, it continues on. The second favorite story that I liked from this book was called Rancid, the Devil Horse, because he robs banks. I don't know. It's funny. Yeah.
I'm going for Kit Kats.
What?
I'm going for Kit Kat.
Daddy got you Kit Kat.
Yes, can I have milk, please, after you're done?
Yeah. Kit Kats. And again, I'm not going to go through all of the stories, but my third, well, shoot. They're all so funny. I'll just name two more stories that I really, really enjoyed. There's The Maggot in the Red Sombrero. Just, the maggot talks, and he wears a red sombrero. It kind of made me think of Sausage Party, which is absolutely not even close in the same realm as the stories, but when I saw Maggot in Sombrero, I thought, oh, I watched the movie Sausage Party, and there were maggots and sombreros, I think, or at least worms, like tequila worms with sombreros in the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, don't watch it. It's bad. And then the last and final story that I absolutely loved was called Stench the Crappy Snowman. And that was actually really sad, and I read that one out loud to my 13-year-old, and he was like, Mom, that's depressing. I'm like, I know, but it's also kind of funny. So I highly recommend this collection of short stories. If you like fairy tales, and not traditional fairy tales, like just made up, ridiculous, absurd fairy tales, I would pick up this book. And I am interested in reading more stories from this dude. I hope he has a ton of books, because his writing is fantastic. Like, it's not poetic, and there's it's not literary fiction, but it's absolutely entertaining. I kind of want to give this 5 stars now. I think I'm going to change it to 5 stars, because the way I'm talking about it reminds me how much I loved this book. So, yes, very, very good. So for what I picked up, What Dreams May Come by Richard Matheson. I don't know why I almost said his last name wrong. I didn't finish this one. I started it, didn't finish it. I got to the second chapter. Because this isn't nonfiction, it takes longer to really pay attention. And so I didn't put it down because I was bored. I put it down because I was just picking up other books. For my when book, I picked up The Unthinkable. Who survives when disaster strikes and why? I figured this would be a perfect book because it has 3 of the words that I was looking for. This is a survivor book, and this is also nonfiction by Amanda Ripley, and I was extremely interested in reading this book, but it was buried under a ton of other books, and then I forgot about it. So I definitely want to pick this up in April, because, yeah, I love books about survival. And then for where, I had Inside the Legendary Forensic Lab, The Body Farm, Where the Dead Do Tell Tales, which is Death's Acre by Dr. Bill Bass. I did pick this up in March. I didn't finish it. I'm only on chapter 4. This is another nonfiction, but I do, again, want to continue it in April and finish it up. And then we have Jesus Interrupted, Revealing the Hidden Contradictions in the Bible and Why We Don't Know About Them by Bart D. Ehrman. I just finished this today. And because I didn't finish it in March, I'm just going to leave this for April's wrap-up. But I did want to show you guys that, you know, I started it in March, finished it in April. This is fantastic. I absolutely loved it. I gave this one 4 stars. And again, I will discuss this more in my April wrap-up. And the last book that I picked up for the Buzzwordathon was How to Ruin Everything, Essays by George Watsky. I don't know who George Watsky is, and I meant to look him up because I guess he's famous. But here's a picture of him in case you guys know who he is. Here's a picture of him. He kind of looks like the dude from Green Day, but I know he's not the guy from Green Day. Anyways, I finished this while I was camping as well, so I'm going to be reviewing it in this video again because my camping trip was at the very beginning of April, and since I started this in March, I figured why not. This one also 5 stars, super hilarious. I didn't know what a book was that says essays in it. I thought if it has essays in it, it's going to be academic in nature, and it was going to be some kind of like persuasive thing or an opinion about some subject. In turn would be persuasive to either agree with his opinion or not. And that's not what this book was. I don't know if that's what all books are that say essays on it, but this one is just a biography or an autobiography, so life stories with George Watsky. I loved this so much. I gave it 5 stars. This also has 13 stories in it. I had 3 favorites that I want to talk about because, you know, that's what reviews are for. And the first book the first story that you read in this book is called Tusk. Now, the cool thing about these stories is that they intertwine. So it will start off with one story, but then the other stories will mention one of these stories in it, so you kind of feel like you're best friends with this dude and you know his life because you've heard these stories before. But basically, Tusk is about his roommate, or I think it's his cousin's grandma, which that doesn't necessarily mean that that's also George's grandma. I think that might be his, you know, other grandma. Anyways, I'm not making any sense. George's cousin's grandma got a narwhal tusk while she was in Canada. And because tusks are illegal here in the United States, because they kind of make it the same as, like it's ivory, but it's a narwhal, and they're not endangered or anything, so the tusks shouldn't be that big of a deal. But she couldn't bring it back to the United States, so she left it in Canada. And the story is about how George, when he was just out of high school, him and his cousin drove to Canada and was able to collect the tusk and give it back to the grandma, and she was very excited about it. But it was such a funny story, and I love the fact that this is what starts this whole book off, so you kind of get a feel of what George's personality is, and you just like him immediately from the beginning. George grew up in San Francisco. He's Jewish, and his family is very, like, quote-unquote Jewish, like the stereotypical Jewish family. So he lived in one part of San Francisco, and it was very influenced by like R&B and rap, and so when he was growing up, he was into that kind of stuff. And so was his cousin, and he got in somehow in high school. He ended up winning the HBO Deaf Poetry Jam, like the very last one that they had, and he won an award. And so that has kept up his like his own hype. Like, he believed in himself because he won that medal, which I thought was just so cute. It's like if you won a spelling bee and that like changed your life. That's kind of like what this poetry metal did. It like changed his life, where he like really believed in himself. So the whole book is about his life choices and what he did to get where he's at now. One of his favorite things growing up was to go to a place in San Francisco that does concerts. I can't remember what it's called. The Free something. Does it say it in the beginning? No. It's not Freeman. There's just this concert hall, like arena, that he used to go to growing up, where he saw all of his favorite artists. And he thought when he was little that one day he was going to do the same thing, and he did. And so what an inspiring story to achieve that kind of good fortune. Like you work really hard, and then you get your dreams, your goals that you have wished for since you were little. The second story that I really, really liked from this book was Crying and Baseball. That story is about how his father, who doesn't really like sports, started liking baseball, and how his best friend also, like through work, he found this guy who also liked to talk about baseball, and then they became best friends for decades. And how the baseball brought George and his father together. They would always go and see the Giants play. I think that's their favorite team, is the Giants. And so I thought that was such a cute story. Like this has a lot of friendship and family throughout the book, and that one made me teary-eyed because it was such a sweet snippet of his life, and how him and his father just really bonded over baseball, and how the dad would keep score and George would just, heckle, and that just, bonded them. I thought that was really cute. And then the very last one that I loved so much was The White Whale, which was George's first bus that he purchased for his road trips, so that way him and his band could go and share their music with different cities and everything. And the struggle that this bus had, and with the band itself, it was very cheap, and they knew it was a lemon, but they bought it anyway, and they were able to maintain all of their dates. And even though the bus broke down several times, it didn't hinder their fierceness in, getting to all of the different concert halls and playing for the people. And it didn't ruin their morale or anything like that. They just kept going, like, we can do it. Almost like, the little blue engine. I think I can. I just really liked that story. So overall, again, 5 stars. It was nonfiction. It was an autobiography of this man's life. At the beginning, or the blurb at the bottom says, funny, subversive, with such brutally honest sentences that you find yourself nodding your head in wonder and recognition. And that was blurred by Lin-Manuel Miranda. So, yeah, if you know who this person is, then definitely pick it up. I really like autobiographies, even if it has a person in it that I have no idea who they are, because that just makes me want to learn more about them. Anyways, that was the last book that I wanted to read for the Buzz Wordathon. So, I talked about my read-along, the Stephen King read-along. I talked about all of my Buzz Wordathons. I talked about the fact that I did pick up Alice in Wonderland for March Madness, but I ended up only reading 4 chapters in the entire book. And this isn't even the book I started on. I started on what am I trying to say? I started with the Penguin edition that had both The Adventures of Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, and my whole point was to reread Alice in Wonderland and then get through A Looking Glass, but that didn't happen. And then I purchased this book for my birthday, and so I picked this one up and continued reading a few more chapters. So I've decided to roll over this one for April, and I'm reading it to my kids right now. And then I also picked up Race Me in a Lobster Suit by Kelly Mahon. I I kind of despise this book. I haven't finished it quite yet. I have like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 more stories left to read before I finished this book. But I put it down because so far right now it's 2 stars. I don't enjoy watching videos of people pranking others. And this whole thing is about a girl pranking people on Craigslist, stringing them along for weeks on end, saying, oh yeah, you know, you can come and be my model, or you can race me in a lobster suit and I'm going to videotape it and it's going to be so fun. And the other person on the other end is super excited to be involved in this weird, exciting, you know, event, and it's all a lie. And I hate that. I hate that. It's so mean. So thank goodness this is an ARC, but I will be giving this one away. I mean, it's something that you may consider entertaining if you know, picked it up at a doctor's office, or if it was in the bathroom and, you know, you had a few minutes to read it. But this isn't something that you would want to buy and own for a long time. Like, this is something that you would pick up from the library, read a few of these, and then give it back. I don't have anything against Kelly. I just didn't find any of these humorous at all, and I feel really bad for those that, you know, went into the ad thinking that these were legit things and hoping to participate in whatever this lady was pretending to offer, and it just didn't happen. So I said that this video was going to be short, and it ended up not being short. But those were all the books I completed in March or started in March. By the way, I'm still reading The Fourth Bear to my kids. I have this much left, so that will be done in April as well. So yeah, those are all the books. All the books. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. So again, the Goodreads group for the Stephen King 2019 read-along will be down below if you'd like to participate with us. I've already posted the book for April, which is Needful Things. I will share that in my TBR video, which I'll be filming after this one. And also Lala's channel link will be down below, along with Penelope's. Please check them out if you haven't. I don't know why you wouldn't know those 2 wonderful women, but if you don't, click on the links and subscribe to their channels because they're amazing. And yeah, that's it. That is it. I hope you guys are having a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys soon.